Hey guys, Akariss here, bringing you part 2 of the Divine Code Paths analysis and value overall as to maybe what you should consider picking up if you're unsure, as kind of like a PLDW, too long didn't watch. I will basically say that your best option might literally be to just save your codes until we may get more paths in the future. Being that there is a newest function, like newest path added, I suspect we will get more in the future and they likely will be better than the selection we have. However, if you do need something specifically for a specific mode, at least use this video as a way to help you understand which one might be the best for you out of these choices. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, it will be in the description below. Go watch that first. Actually, it doesn't really matter. They're not really in sequence, but watch it if you want the full picture. To be honest, most of what I covered in part 1 was pretty disappointing, and honestly, again, one of the best ways to maybe look at this is a merge for a core unit. For example, if Celica is a core unit, getting a Celica merge is really useful from the Mystery Shadows path. But with all that being said, you can check out the blackboard on the top left for kind of like what my goals are on understanding and analyzing these paths. And I'm actually going to keep my kind of like my summary of what I feel each path is good for. Maybe what modes they're going to be good at. So with that being said, let's jump into it. First we have here is continuing on from part 1, the Blades and Sacred Stones path. Now, at least we got something from LA Lilina. Green Gift. Now remember, I'm covering the unique fodder. If the like attack tactic, or HP attack may seem unique to you, it's not really unless you just haven't pulled the Legault ever, which may be the case, but I'm just speaking strictly from fodder that is not found anywhere else. And a lot of seasonal units like LA Lilina have this. Now Green Gift isn't terrible. It's actually dual ranged pretty much on the weapon, which isn't bad. So if you wanted to build some sort of green tank that didn't have a preference weapon, Green Gift actually wouldn't be the most terrible of choices. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I mean, LA Lilina doesn't have much going for her. There's, Cecilia in the 3 and 4 star pool mergeable, so it doesn't really get much out of it. Second on the list is Amelia. Now Amelia has Armor March. And believe it or not, to the day of this video, Armor March is still not readily available. Neither is Bold or Vengeful Fighter, or obviously not Special Fighter. So most armor skills are fairly exclusive, and that does give some value to Amelia. Actually pretty important if you run armor cores in any of the modes. With that being said, we move on to Nino, and she has Aerobatics. Swift Sparrow and Speed Smoke's kind of being available through other means, but generally speaking, Aerobatics is actually a pretty good skill, especially on air defense. Could have some use on air offense as well, but defense definitely useful on like dancers, for instance. I do suspect that Aerobatics may show up as a F2P skill at some point. It's already a seal, so I definitely see it showing up on a GHB or Tempest Trials unit at some point, which would definitely devalue this path. Moving on, we have Attack, Defense, Solo, and Bold Fighter coming from Winter Ephraim. Both these skills are good. I mean, it's not really much to say about them. Attack, Defense, Solo is good on carries that kind of move on ahead from the rest of the team, especially like dancers who encourage player phase units to move on ahead and clear. And Bold Fighter, pretty stable for most armors that want to do good things. Alright, Distant Counter, the kind of peninsula of this path. I mean, all you really get is Distant Counter, so it's pretty disappointing that you'd spend basically 6,000 codes up to 8 months or so, depending on your ranking, to just pick up Distant Counter. But Distant Counter is still a staple in 2020, so at least you get that at the end. And there's definitely paths that are more disappointing, which we'll definitely cover at the end of this video. So that pretty much covers Blades and Sacred Stones. I definitely would bunch it in a sort of arena and AR kind of path, because most of these skills can find usage in ARO, defense, or arena. Not really getting much PvE value out of it unless you run in like a sort of arena core, armor core, sorry, which isn't really much to say about it. Moving on, we have the Radiance Path. Now it actually begins with Leanne, who I do recommend merging if you have at least a single copy of, because honestly, her fodder isn't too amazing. I mean, Hone Beast is the only thing that really stands out here. She has Flyer Formation, but that's already attainable on 2 different Grail units. So not much going for her, but Leanne is a superb dancer, colorless flying, basically 3 movement with conditions met is amazing. So Leanne being merged just like Rayson is a good thing, if nothing else. Moving on, we got, oh boy, tons of unique skills coming from the second one, which is pretty rare, especially if you compare it to Celica. Attack speed push, still kind of not found on anything else. Rock slide dance, not actually too great. And probably the most awesome thing being the Cloud Mayogi Dagger, which is dragon effectiveness, and that is super good if you're building like an AR defense team. But on top of that, it has the Hardy Bearing effect built in, so it can be given to tons of other units, even if not being used for the dragon effectiveness. It's a very good weapon, and probably the thing you should fodder her for if you do pick her up from this path. I suggest picking up push 3 if you're going to fodder push 4 to a single unit, pick up another skill at least for value that way. But that dagger, definitely something to look for, because it's really not found on anything except Laroom Dragon Slasher, so that's not too great. Moving on, we have Lethe's Speed Defense Solo and Hone Beast again. Believe it or not, Lethe is the only unit that has Speed Defense Solo in this whole game, so that actually makes that fodder fairly unique. I wouldn't exactly call it better than Attack Speed Solo, but it's not a terrible secondary choice. If you were to give it to a certain carry unit, someone like Bronya could definitely use it, for example, or Sophia if you're speed stacking, playing on air offense. Even other units like Bowie definitely could make use of it. Good carry units definitely could take advantage of it. So again, not completely dead. Your codes are being spent well if you go through here. Now, I've given the assist symbol there because Harsh Command Plus doesn't have a specific symbol, and that's pretty much what you get from Aneth. Now, that is actually warranted as being a useful thing to pick up from her, because Harsh Command Plus is an amazing skill on AR defense. It's an amazing skill for arena scoring because it's a high scoring skill. And honestly, it just kind of, it's a really good skill. It reverses debuffs and gives you huge advantages. So good skill all around, but probably would be used for arena to increase your score and give you higher rankings for more rewards. Lofty Blossoms, not really though. I mean, you could technically pick it up with Harsh Command Plus, but she does have Swift Sparrow and Chill Attack, and that's probably better to pick up if you do pick those things up. Finally, to round it out, we have Fury 4, Armor March, and Faithful Axe. Tons of options here, especially of Grails to be foddered to a Axe unit. You could pretty much pick up Armor March and Fury all in one, or his Axe and Fury. Definitely super good peak here unit to pick up from this path. Better than, let's say, Hector, for instance, when all you really get is this Encounter and Worry Fighter there. But Grail, yeah, Fury 4, good stuff. Fury is still kind of a staple among a lot of builds, and Fury 4 is just basically a better version of that, so can't complain. Very good path overall. Still kind of feels like an AR or arena path, not necessarily for PvE. There's no real PvE skills here. Maybe Fury, I guess, but not much to it more than that. Maybe Push again, but 4. It's kind of outclassed by 4. So I would rank this as kind of like a AR offense and arena path, but it is definitely really good for both of those modes. Top tier path for sure. To round it all out, we have the Awakening Fates path, which starts off with Summer Cordelia having Shell Lance. Not impressive, feels like a Lofty Blossom kind of weapon. Again, you're not really getting much out of her. Dull Clothes can be found on Core Mags, so yeah, nothing to say there. For Robin, we actually have 2 things, Vengeful Fighter and War Dragons. War Dragons is still fairly rare. I believe it's only found on Ithune besides Grima, so yeah. But Vengeful Fighter is a nice pickup if you're going for more of a PvE type of armor builds or armor balls. Probably not the best strategy, but it seems like it's pretty good, at least for that, if you're going to either build dragons or armors using Vengeful Fighter. Here we have Owain as the next option, and Owain is, he has Blue Flame, which is actually a high scoring special, and it's a pretty good one having a low cooldown, similar to Ruptured Sky. He has Wrath and Bond, I believe, but those can be found on Rutger and Astrum, so they're not really the rarest thing, but it's nice that you could probably pick up one of those additional skills on top of Blue Flame, which makes it pretty good for that. Moving on, we got Dusk Uchiwa and Close Counter from Xander here. Now the thing that I really want to point out is that this is 4,000 codes as opposed to 6,000 on Distant Counter, which actually makes this path pretty good to not blow all your codes away all at once for something at the end, because they tend to pack the best skills at the end, but Close Counter here being at 4,000 codes rather than 6,000 is a huge boon if you ask me. And to round it out, strangely enough, we have Null Follow-Up and Hone Dragons at the end. Again, Hone Dragons is rare, found on pretty much only Myr. And Null Follow-Up is an exceptionally good skill found for both Arena and AR, for a tank at least, but honestly 6,000 codes for Null Follow-Up doesn't seem too good because it is found on plenty of other units. So yeah, I mean 8 months of playing or just potentially try your luck at the gacha for Null Follow-Up. I don't really like the case with that, and I'd probably just stop at Close Counter on this particular path and call it a day. So with that being said, to kind of sum up my thoughts on what we got here, you'll see right under me all of the different paths we've covered between both videos, but I do want to go through them in detail. So this is the order in which they were released, and ironically, if I'm to rank them, it pretty much looks like this. Almost a flip, but not really. Going through it again, Radiance seems to offer the most out of everything, so I would consider it the best path to go through. You kind of get something for every mode at least. Maybe PvE would be the only thing lacking, but investing into other modes makes PvE easier as a result. So the Radiance Path I feel is the best one. You get something for everyone here. Next one would probably be the Awakening Fates, and this is definitely carried by the fact that Close Counter is found at 4,000 codes. That is huge. It means you save 2,000 that could definitely be used for another path or starting another path. Moving on from that, we have pretty much the Distant Counter path, but also Armor March and Aerobatics, which I feel are still fairly hard to get. So, well, not hard, but like, they're not easily available yet. So the Blade Sacred Stones path with Distant Counter at the end is still pretty good, and Ephraim giving you a solo and a bold fighter is nice to boot. Finally, the paths we covered in the first video all kind of fall flat here, and they honestly shouldn't really be spent. Like, they shouldn't really be, you shouldn't spend codes in these paths unless you really wanted specific fodder, which is why I've ranked them the way I have. Which Mysteries and Shadows pretty much being carried by Disarm Trap for AR offense, maybe a Wrathful Staff off of Jenny, and Fort Defense Res, which all you feel can have substitutes in one way, but Disarm Trap would be the carry of that path. Hero's Path is very disappointing overall. You're pretty much getting nothing there, and mere impact being at the end, while good for AR defense, doesn't feel like it's worth 8 months of play. And finally, Holy War. This is pretty much a path you go in if you're adding merges to your core units. I'm literally serious on this one. You have very disappointing fodder there, which is easily found either through spending feathers or a small amount of grails. And that is really not the way you want to spend 6,000 codes. I mean, Swift Sparrow 3 Special Spiral, great for PvE, but, you know, if you just played a little better, you probably can get away with Fury Desperation, for instance, on some, or use certain characters that may have built-in special acceleration. So this is how I would rank our current paths. I'll definitely do an updated video to this if needed, should we get, let's say, a lot more free fodder options in an update, or a lot more paths, where you'll see me definitely cover those. I'd also like to take a look at some of the limited manuals and such, like the red papers that we've gotten so far, and kind of analyze or suggest what you guys should go for there. All right? So with that being said, guys, I hope you took something out of this. Honestly, best advice I can give you, save your papers, because it really feels like you're not on a time limit here. Only make a decision if you absolutely need something and absolutely is vital for, let's say, attaining a certain rank due to poor performance or just low scoring. So with that being said, guys, please let me know in the comments below if you've already committed to certain paths or you're saving for something in particular. Maybe save 6,000 at once and make a decision that way. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, guys. I'll see you in the next one, all right? Much love. Peace.